So welcome. My name is Karen Curry Parker. I don't always introduce myself. Sometimes I forget because I get so excited. But this is the Quantum Alignment Show, and today we're going to be talking about human design and money. And where are we going? And this isn't going to be your regular conversation necessarily about manifesting money in the way that we maybe have talked about creating money in the past, because I think that the conversations that we need to have about money are new conversations, innovative conversations that get us out of the treadmill of contributing our effort and our striving in the world in exchange for material value. The nature of how we do money is changing a lot. The relationship that we have with money and with the economy and with value, including our personal value and the way in which we value each other and the way in which we create value with business, is changing. And for us to be on the leading edge of not only consciousness, but on the leading edge of creating in a rapidly evolving world, we have to understand the nature of the conversations we need to have about money and how to create sustainably, not only for ourselves, but for the world. So we're going to explore today just some of the astrological things that are playing out, what that means, and we're going to begin. This is probably going to be about 3 parts, another 3-part quantum alignment series. Begin a conversation about money, and money in particular in the context of human evolution and human design. All right, let's talk about money by design. And here's some things I want you to think about as we begin the contemplation of money. It is not enough to have faith in sufficiency. We are taught and we are encouraged to embrace the mantra of enoughness. And that when we have enough, we are taught to be satisfied that enoughness, having enough, should be enough. And certainly there's a place to be in gratitude for having enough. But we also have to understand, particularly when we look at evolution and where we are, as I believe all of you on this call listening, you're light workers, you're cosmic evolutionaries, you are revolutionaries in this evolutionary cycle, and you stand on the leading edge of consciousness, which means that for you, having just enough is the minimum standard of the divine. You can get that piece covered, but there's more. And there's a reason why you need to look at or explore for yourself, what does it mean to create more? The mastery of abundance is learning to facilitate the creative initiative of the divine, and I might even add, for the divine, allowing the divine to create through you. You are a vehicle through which abundance flows, and the purpose of abundance is not only to provide for yourself and your loved ones, but to use your abundance to increase the blessings of abundance for others. You are an agent of abundance for the world, and we are not abundant until we are all abundant. And I would probably guess, again, because I know you guys and I love you guys, I know that the people that I have the privilege of speaking to every week are driven to create what they create in the world because they want everybody in the world to be abundant. I know that this is at the root of what drives many of you. And it's also at the root of why sometimes when we struggle for money, it's so painful. It's not just about ourselves. It's that we recognize that when we struggle with abundance in any way, shape, or form, that it's cutting us off from being able to give more to the world, and you all want to be able to give more. It is not enough anymore to simply let go and to trust that you'll have enough. We also have to consciously co-create with the divine, which means for many of us, this new evolutionary cycle is an opportunity for us to expand our dreams beyond maybe even what we think is possible. And certainly sort of as an introduction to what we want to begin to talk about this month, when we look at the relationship that we have with money and our innate creativity, I want to invite you all this month to give yourself permission to blow the edges off of what you think is possible, and to never again limit yourself from allowing yourself to create or co-create with the essence of the divine simply because you think it might not be possible. I want you to think about this cycle that we're entering into as kind of like being a 4-year-old writing a Christmas list. And I don't know if you guys, I have to get out of here and look at you guys when we do this one. You guys ever notice, like, if you've ever been around a 4-year-old creating a Christmas list, what do they do? Like, at 9 o'clock at night, you're, like, trying to get the kid to bed, right? Go to bed, go to bed, go to bed, because if you don't go to bed, Santa's not gonna come, right? And you finally get the kid to bed, and 5 minutes later, they come padding downstairs, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And they're like, "I have one more thing I wanna add to my list." And it's like a hamster or something that, there's just no way you can go to the store and do this, right? That kid is creating. And we have a tendency to shut that kid's creativity down because we start going, well, Santa can't, da da da, right? Or we start telling the kid the reasons why not. And I'm not saying that that's not reasonable, but we start to embody that. And I think we have to explore the idea that the most important thing right now for us is to begin to look at how do we create sustainably on the planet. That we have been in a cycle of being out of balance with sustainability, which is what our earth is telling us in response. The earth is reeling from overuse and depletion of resources because we have not been harmonious and sustainable in the way in which we've engaged with our resources. For us to be sustainable in the way in which we create, we have to first personally be sustained, meaning we have to first and foremost, at the root of all of this, understand that we ourselves are enough. Our self-value, our worth, our own sense of our own worth is the root at which satisfaction is created. And to a certain degree, when we can stand in the value of who we are and begin to see each other as that same quality of value, meaning we don't look at other people and we don't other them and we don't see them as less than, and we don't engage in any kind of an interaction that would devalue another person. When we stand in our own value and we see the value of each other, I do think to a certain degree that conversation becomes somewhat moot. Because if you are sufficient unto yourself, then what do you need to prove with your greed or your taking more than enough? Your own sense of value is rooted within yourself and it's immaterial. It's not material. And so being sufficient becomes satisfying because your sense of satisfaction isn't being derived from an overcompensation of a sense of lack and you trying to jam a bunch of material stuff into that hole, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, when is enough enough? What is enough? How do we get to enough? And when we have enough, how do we share without fear of, oh my God, if I give this away, I'm now losing it. I won't have it. We also have to get way better at understanding the nature of how to share. But hang with me here, because I hope I will at least hit maybe the beginnings of some of these dialogue, some of these answers, and maybe some of these questions as I go through some of the material that I want to share with you today. Anyway, remember that 4-year-old. That 4-year-old doesn't think that it's impossible to get the hamster. I want you to stop engaging in the idea that things are impossible. What if consciousness, through you and through your intention to serve consciousness, has no limitations, particularly when what you're seeking to create is in service to the greater good? March the 6th, Uranus moved into the Taurus position. Uranus is the planet of revolution and dramatic, sometimes unexpected change. In the energy of Taurus, Taurus is the energy of banking, finances, the earth, and resources. It is an energy that holds together our structures, our collective structures around things like finances, banking, money. When we see revolutionary energy in this position, we know that we are in a 7-year revolutionary cycle that promises to, at the end of it in April 2026, spit us out at the other side of it in a radically transformed place. Uranus moves out of the way structures that no longer support the higher good, the highest good of humanity. And as we look at the way in which the global economy is organized, the way in which the banking industry is organized, I would lovingly and gently argue that it does not serve the highest good at this point in time on our planet, and that these structures need to be evolved in order for them to be more equitable and sustainable and ultimately even peaceful on the planet. What we see with this energy is a cosmic restructuring of our relationship with money, and because money is rooted in human design in the same center that is associated with our value, we're seeing a cosmic restructuring in our relationship with what we value and how we value each other. For us to get the most out of understanding what that means, you have to look at what happened the last time we had a Uranus and Taurus cycle. This is 1934 to 1942. We saw the Dust Bowl in America that came from a misuse of our resources, overgrazing primarily in the Great Plains. We saw the Great Depression, right? We saw crazy dictators, we'll just call them that. We saw terrible genocide, which obviously we still see on the planet. This was a time of significant challenge and even hatred and separation and othering, but we came out the other end, the other side of that cycle, at least using the United States as a metaphor for what we did globally. We saw peace. We saw a restructuring of financial institutions and what I'll call safety nets from a governmental perspective. We saw the creation of Social Security, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the Fair Housing Authority, lots of other. The whole New Deal Part 2 came out during this time, where we started to explore how do we catch people so we don't fall into these deep depths of poverty and impoverishment ever again. It's important when we look at this that we look at what this energy, what we've been setting ourselves up to explore with these energies, even in the last couple of years. And I will say that one of the things that's come to light, I think, in the last couple of years, the real dangers of lack consciousness coming into play. We have globally a lot of energy that feels very not diverse, but feels very divisive and even binary, this or that, male or female, black or white. We've had a lot of really binary thought forms happening, and thought forms that are rooted to a certain degree in lack. I don't have enough, therefore I've got to get more than my share to make sure that I have enough, and I'm going to take it from you or whoever, or I'm going to see anybody that's going to change the way I do my life as threatening. And we have seen, I believe, a lot of posturing that creates an energy that I like to call othering. We've othered each other. And Uranus in Taurus starts to bring in a whole different potential for that energy of othering and move us into a space of creating, not from a place of lack, but from a place of recognition that I have enough. And that when I am aligned with the truth of who I am, I will be aligned with whatever I need to fulfill my unique and irreplaceable role in the cosmic plan. What we have to also be aware of is that we carry within our genes, or actually on the exterior of our genes, there are protein codes on the exterior of your DNA. Those protein codes, called epigenes, carry up to 14 generations worth of energetic memories of all the things that have happened to us before. And whenever we enter into big collective evolutionary cycles, such as Uranus into Taurus, not only does it give us a possibility of personal transformation and transformation in our generation of how we do things on the planet, it also triggers in us these ancient ancestral genetic-based memories that we carry within us on a cellular level. One of my fellow students in graduate school right now is actually doing research on money, mindset, and consciousness in grandchildren and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of people who survived the Dust Bowl in West Texas. And one of the things that she has seen is that even when grandchildren and great-grandchildren of people who survived the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression in West Texas, even if they have a lot of money now in their adult lives, they still have a deep anxiety or a fear of losing money. And that fear actually takes away from their sense of happiness, satisfaction, and well-being around their money. Is it because they are at risk? Maybe not so much, but they carry within them an ancestral memory of having lost everything. And if you've ever looked at photos of the Dust Bowl or ever been around people, there's not so many people left anymore, but people who grew up or were around in the Great Depression, the depth of the economic trauma was huge. And if you have this as part of your ancestral memory, your lineage, you're carrying this in your cells. And that may be impacting your current relationship with money. Even if you are totally fine financially, it still may be creating anxiety for you. When we go through these cycles, these ancestral memories get triggered with the opportunity for us, especially now, knowing what we know scientifically about how to reprogram epigenetic memory and create a healthier expression of our authentic selves. These memories get stirred up right now to be cleared. And we're in a cycle right now of being really needing to look at these ancestral memories and to explore reframing these stories, not just so that we can create a better life, but so that we can actually clear our genetic lineage for generations to come. Abundance is our birthright. If you look at the human design chart, you're actually going to see that we are designed to be abundant. It's in our hardwiring. But the way in which we create abundance is probably a little bit different than how many of us have been conditioned, trained, or taught. I'm going to show you just the places where money and abundance live in the chart. Before I do this, because every time I do this, I know it creates panic. I want to just preset the stage so there's no panic. So if you've got your chart out and you start looking at your chart and you're like, I don't have any of these in my chart, I'm not designed to be abundant, I want you to go, wait, time out. We all have all of the chart. Just like in your genes, on a cellular level, you have contained within you the entire potential genome for being a human being. All the genes of humanity are contained within you. You're not expressing all of them, but you have access to all of them. Same thing with human design. Let me just make sure I explain this clearly and correctly, because it's so important, because I hear this a lot. You have all of the chart. The parts of the chart that are colored in are themes that you are designed to explore and engage in consistently. And these are energies that you carry that are sourced from within yourself. The definition is your consistent theme, and you have a more fixed and consistent way of processing and experiencing that energy. If you have something in your chart white, it doesn't mean you don't have it, okay? It does mean that you have variability in how you can use that energy. And here's how I like to describe it. Wherever you have openness, and this is true of gates, channels, and centers, wherever you have openness, it's like you have a basket. And in this basket, as you go through life and you encounter that energy, it's like every encounter that you have with that energy is like a gem. And you take that gem and you put it in your basket. And you take that gem, every time you encounter it, you keep taking these gems and putting them in your basket. At a certain point, you're going to want to draw on that energy. Let's say you are emotionally undefined, okay? That doesn't mean you're not emotional. You are not Spock, okay? It means that you don't have your own emotional energy source within you, but instead you have this big giant basket of all these potential different ways that you can be using this emotional energy. What that means is that when you need to use emotional energy, you can borrow it. You can't hold it, you can't sustain it because it's not sourced within you, but you can borrow it. And because you're borrowing it, and you're borrowing out of this big basket that has all these gems in it, you get to choose, okay, how am I going to use this energy? How am I going to explore and express this energy? What am I going to do with this energy now that I'm experiencing it? You have freedom in that openness to have choice based on the variability of your experience of that energy to use it in the way in which you choose. Now, that does not mean that if you have it defined or colored in your chart that you're so fixed that you can't evolve. You still always have the option to continue to express the highest possible expression of that energy. Same is true for your openness. We always have choice over expressing the high side or the low side of the energy. So you are in this process right now where if you have openness, you have the opportunity to find the highest expression you've ever known and seen through others, and to draw on that and to grow that and to borrow that when you want to use that energy. So when I'm showing you these examples, I'm not saying if you have this in your chart, you're abundant, okay? We're all designed to be abundant. I'm showing you in the chart as a general framework for the human potential that all humans have the potential to experience the high expression of these energies. Hopefully that makes sense. As I said, we are all designed to be abundant. And the most important thing that I really want you to see is that the nature of our abundance, the true nature of our abundance, is not really attached to the work we do in the world. And that's really important to understand, especially if you are by human design a quote unquote non-working type, meaning if you're a manifestor, projector, or reflector, that's about approximately 30%, a little less than 30% of the planet. Your wealth and your abundance and your ability to create is not necessarily tied to your job. And actually, that's even true for generators. And I think we have to really begin the conversation of this whole do what you love and the money will follow myth. Sometimes that's true. And when that works, it's awesome. And when it doesn't work, it just means that you're being supported so that you can do the thing you love on the side. And I think we have a tendency to diss our work that isn't work we love because we think, oh, well, someday I'm going to have some job that I love. What if what you love is never going to be your job? What if what you love is to like create nonprofit organizations to feed children in Africa, and that's never going to be your source of quote unquote financial support, but that you have an opportunity through your work to create the financial support for you to be able in your other life, so to speak, or in your complementary parts of your life, to be able to fulfill the passion and the calling of your soul. Let's stop tying our life purpose to our money and our job, because that's already a big trip to put on ourselves right there. And it causes us to really feel like failures if we have a good job, but it's not a job we love. Or if we have a good job, but it's not aligned with our life purpose. I'm not saying be out of integrity. Don't do something you don't want to do that's out of integrity. But I'm saying give yourself permission to be supported and to not get yourself into the monkey mind of, well, it has to be, my life purpose has to be my job. Because that's sometimes a really harsh trip to run on yourself. So the first place where we see abundance in the chart is in the gate 55. And this actually is the energy towards which all of us are moving. This energy, this gate 55, is called abundance. And it's about being aligned with abundant emotional energy. Now, does that mean drama? No. Does that mean, all the other things that we associate with in the negative way with emotional energy? No. It means this. The translation of this energy is that through our faith, meaning through our emotional quality of being positively expectant that the things in which we are creating that are yet unseen are on their way to us, even if we don't have evidence yet, that when we can stay in that state of positive expectation emotionally, anticipating, excited, delighted, curious, when we stay in those energies, then we speed up the process through which we create in our lives the manifested version of that faith-filled intention that we are holding. In other words, we create from being positive. It's that simple. We create by maintaining and sustaining a state of positive expectation or being or creating from a place of faith. Now, I know that some of you are emotionally defined and that for you, some of days you might be struggling because of the nature of your emotional wave with being positively expectant about something. You might have days where you struggle to be in that space. Does that mean you're failing and blocking your manifestations? No. Okay. This is a center that is designed to create over time. It's not in the now, like the spleen on the other side of the chart. It is creation over time. And what's important is not the day-to-day undulations of your emotional energy, although I do encourage all of us to consciously cultivate a quality of energy on a daily basis that sustains us. Okay? And that means staying in that state of faith. But recognizing that what's important is the baseline frequency that you're offering. What's the midpoint? Where do you keep yourself at a minimum level? And I think I have a graph that shows that a little bit later on in the presentation. What's the midpoint? It's not about the day-to-day fluctuations. It's about if we take an average of the fluctuations over time, can you keep yourself in a high vibration state with the understanding that some days are not going to be so great and others are going to be awesome, but the midpoint is what sets the tone or the quality of the vibration you're offering. In the channel 14.2, this is a generated channel. It is associated with work, But the thing that's important to understand about the sacral, which is the square at the bottom here, which under normal circumstances in your chart, if you have it defined, will be red, and you will be a generator or manifesting generator type. But again, we all have this channel. This channel says that when I respond, meaning when I let life show me what's the next step for me to do in my creative process. This is far away from the brain, you guys. This is, life force energy, responsive gut level energy. That when I let life bring the next step to me, all I have to do is follow the steps that feel good and right and aligned. And when I follow those steps, I will be given. And notice that I said given because the 2, which is the gate that's on the bottom of the diamond here, is yin yin in the Chinese hexagram, meaning it is the most receptive of all the gates. We are designed through responding to receive and allow all the resources we need to fulfill our purpose. So yes, there's a little bit of work here, but it's work that's given to you through the unfolding of the path of life. And you follow the path that feels good and right. It doesn't mean you follow the path of suffering, self-flagellation, torture, sacrifice, martyrdom. That's not in the chart, by the way. The next place where we see money in the chart is the 4521. This is the place where the will center makes it to the throat. The beautiful part about this is that, first of all, the quality of what we contribute to the world and the quality of the economic value that we create is closely correlated to the value that we hold for ourselves. Meaning, when you have a high sense of your own personal value and the value of what you are here to give the world, you will confer upon yourself more value. You will create more value. You will have more value. This is a place where things get bungled up a lot. Because what we do see, and this is where I think greed comes into play, is that when we question our value or when we get depleted in our resources or perceive ourselves as being depleted in our resources, then we overcompensate. And that's where we take more than enough, or we take more than our share because we're running on empty and we're afraid of empty and we're terrified that we are not enough. So we try to prove our worth by being more than enough in other places in our lives. Someone who is living from ego, in the dark side that we talk about, ego is not operating from a high sense of self-worth and is consequently creating innately from a place of lack. And that place of lack actually hoards resources rather than shares resources. The highest expression of this place of abundance in the chart is about sustaining all the resources necessary to share with others. This is tribal energy, and it is all about sharing the resources you have with others so that everyone has enough. Not me, we have enough. And the me that is you, that differentiated part of yourself, is designed to be in service to the we. We are designed to serve each other in the highest expression of who we are. And in that flow of abundance, we have more to give and more to share. And ultimately, we change the nature, because this is material energy here, we actually change the nature of the material world and what's available, not only to ourselves, but to others. If we're going to break down the creative process, this is a model I have been using for probably 25 years now. And I want to share it with you because it's a model that, first of all, has many places of attack. And I say many places of attack because we have a tendency when we talk about creating money in the new thought world, in the abundance consciousness world, in the deliberate creation world, we have a tendency to start with our minds. We say thoughts become things, right? And I'm not saying that they don't, but sometimes thoughts don't become things in the way that we think that they will. And trying to change our mind and our mindset, when we understand that most of us have an open head and ajna, it's not so easy to lock onto changing your mind and sticking with it. In fact, that's one of the most common things people say to me. Well, how do I visualize when I can't keep a consistent thought going in my open head and ajna? Well, maybe it's not because you're supposed to visualize in the way that we've been trained to visualize. We are not designed to visualize red Suburban with gray interior leather seats and a silver running board and then wait with that vision in our mind until that manifests. Sometimes that works. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but most of the time it doesn't. And part of why it doesn't work is, first of all, when we hold that fixed of an intention, we're basically telling the infinite supply of the universe, hey, universe, here's my teeny tiny little funnel, jam all the bigness that is you through this tiny little hole. Infinite mind and the universe and the quantum field have much greater opportunities and awarenesses about what you need than sometimes our human brains do. So staying open helps a lot. Number two, the purpose of the mind is to stimulate an emotional frequency of energy. We just talked about that a little bit with the gate 55. The thoughts you hold, actually, when you have a thought, actually, let's do this. I'll just do this for 1 minute. It's one of my favorite things to do with you guys. I'm going to say the word money. Okay. And just for a minute, I want you guys to just think about money. Money is an archetype. It has a bajillion different meanings, and it has a bajillion different ways that it can show up in our material reality. When we think about an archetype, when I gave you the thought of money, what you just did right now is you created a photon storm, a storm of light particles in your brain. That photon storm stimulated your brain to create a specific set of neurotransmitters. Those neurotransmitters, which if I took you into the lab, we could measure those neurotransmitters. You took light right now. You just now took light, photons, and made matter out of light. So first of all, don't ever tell me you're not powerful, because you are. You're so powerful that you just took light and made matter out of it. All right? Those neurotransmitters stimulate an emotional response. That emotional response in turn stimulates the heart, and it either creates heart coherence, which is a highly creative state that draws into your experience things that match your emotional frequency of energy. Or if I said money and you went, and you haven't paid your bills yet for this month, or you're freaked out about money or whatever, and it created a whole bunch of stress responses, neurotransmitters that created stress response in you, you calibrated your heart to generate for yourself more experiences that match that frequency of energy. The meanings we hold, and this is why having a revolution in your relationship with money is so important, because we need to cultivate different meanings. The meanings we hold about an idea or thought or an archetype create. It's the meanings you have around money that are creating your relationship with money. You don't like your relationship with money, you have to change the meanings you have about money. And that's interesting right now, because I will say that I think right now on this planet, the meaning of money is in and of itself changing, which is why I think so many of my clients struggle with money. I am very blessed to attract what I call light workers. A lot of my clients are healers, coaches, therapists, people who are in some way in the helping profession, and they are struggling a lot of times with money. And I think part of why we are struggling with money when we are in those kinds of professions is because intuitively we know this archetype is changing. And so we say, I hear my clients say this all the time, I just want to show up and do my work. I don't have to worry about marketing, business, money, accounting, all that money stuff over here. And then we run a bad rap on light workers and we say, oh, well, you got to get grounded with this and you got to do your work. And yeah, you do to a certain degree, for sure. But what if what's really going on is that you're showing the symptoms of the evolution of an archetype? And that maybe if part of what you're here to do is to create greater levels of well-being in the world, and that to do that, you want to be unfettered from the confines of finances and money, because you want to create value in a different way in the world, maybe what's really going on is that you're on the leading edge of the evolution of consciousness around money. That doesn't mean that we can't find ways to support you in generating more money, because we're really between two worlds, and some of you have 1 foot in one and 1 foot in the other, and that's confusing. But that we are really changing this dynamic, and maybe what's going on with you is you're not screwed up, stuck, broken, struggling with self-worth, bad at marketing, hate sales, all that stuff we tell ourselves, but maybe you're just showing the symptoms of being in transition with a new archetype and a new energy. Okay. I like to use this model because it's a model that has a multifaceted approach. You can begin to change your point of creation in lots of different ways. Let's go a little bit further into this model, and let's explore a little bit the main premises of this model. The first premise is, in order to get what you want, you have to know what you want. And I know that for many of us, that's already a big bugaboo, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. Number two, the second thing is you have to believe you can have it. Okay, if you want something but you don't think it's possible for you, so every time you think about it, you get depressed, think about the meanings you're holding and how are those meanings creating. Number three, you have to take guided action to get it. Notice how I said guided action, which means you've got to interface with the creation of this process or this experience or this money in the way that's right for your type. So you can't just go out and make it happen or just frickin' do it or whatever mantra you may have been taught in whatever personal growth and development workshops you've been taking. You have to do it in the way that's right for you. Because if you don't, then you're going to be burning yourself out and not sustaining yourself. And then you can't create sustainably because you're then operating or creating from a point of lack. The fourth thing is that emotions drive the creative process. That even if you don't know what you want, even if you think you don't believe you can have it, and you don't know what actions to take, you can start the creative process by getting your emotions into a better space. And that can be something as simple as having a daily practice of taking your dog for a walk and appreciating while you walk 10 things. It sounds hokey, but there's actually research that shows if you can find 10 things to be grateful for every day, you begin to change your brain and change your emotional well-being. And then last but not least, this kind of goes hand in hand with it, tend to your vibrational frequency. Take good care of yourself. Take a look around you in your environment. What are you exposing yourself to? My husband upstairs, I moved my office downstairs so I'd be away with this. My husband listens to the news 24/7. I mean, literally, sometimes I have to get up in the night and go turn the radio off because he forgets to turn it off. So if you're exposing yourself, if you're bathing in the energy of NPR and death all day long, it's going to affect you. So make sure that you are diligently tending to your environment so that it becomes a place that is nourishing and supportive and beautiful, and that you love it, that it has a frequency, a vibrational frequency that lifts you up and supports you in staying lifted, not moment by moment. This is about sustains you over time, okay? So, biggest things about knowing what you want. Step one, how do you know what you want? I find that most people don't know what they want. Most of my coaching clients are struggling with getting clarity. The first thing you can do is if you don't know what you want, is follow your strategy. Then you don't even have to think about it. Just see what shows up and follow your strategy. And of course, follow your authority with that by human design. The second thing is get out of your head and ajna. Stop trying to figure it out. Because you don't know if what you think you want from your head and ajna is actually what you really want until it shows up correctly according to your strategy by type. The next thing to think about is if you don't know what you want, look at what's going on in your life that you don't want and use that as a pushing off point for your creativity. If you're in a job you hate with a boss who's abusive, that's knowing what you don't want, right? I don't want to be in this job. I don't want to be in this environment with this abusive boss. What I want is a job where I feel fulfilled, where I have a boss who treats me respectfully and honors the work that I put into the job that I do. That's the opposite of what you're experiencing right now that you don't want. So if you think you don't know what you want, look at what you don't want and think about creating the opposite of it. It's a good place to start. And then last but not least, look at your conditioning. Sometimes what we think we want is what we've been told we should want. And again, going back to the 4-year-old with their Christmas list, I want you to break free of all those limitations and all those places where you think it's impossible. If you have a dream of living on a beach and being a writer, I want to encourage you to give yourself permission to, at the very least, have the dream. Don't judge the dream. Maybe you don't know how it's going to happen right now, but let yourself have the dream. That's the most infinitely beautiful way you can be generous with yourself and enhance for yourself your own value. You are valuable enough to allow yourself to have your dreams. This is the knowing what you want thing, right? The other piece about knowing what you want and understanding your wants is that when we have a desire, a want, I like using the word desire. People get sometimes worried about the word want and they think it's lack-filled. So we'll say desire instead. When you think about what you want, keep it open-ended. Don't get so locked into the idea that I have to visualize to the point where I give myself a headache trying to hold on to a fixed idea. Okay? Keep it open-ended. Engage with your desire with curiosity and wonder, what would it be like if? Go on a flight of fancy. Use your imagination and explore creatively in your mind. When you do that, you are creating a photon storm that stimulates emotions that are positive, that keep your emotional frequency in a state of expectation and joy. You are exploring the possibilities of the universe. You don't have the answers, and it's okay. You are designed to have the questions. When we look at how we interface with the quantum field by design, we are designed through the gates 63, 64, and 61, the gates in the head center, to ask questions, not to have answers. And when we see the quantum field with manifestations of something new in our life, when we want to create something new, we start first by asking creative questions and then letting the universe show us what the next step is. It's not about figuring it out, it's about asking good questions. And pay attention when the answers show up in your outer reality to how they feel. If the answers that show up feel good, go do them. If the answers that show up feel crappy, don't do them. So here's just some sample setups, things, ways in which you can set up maybe some of your desires as you're contemplating them right now. What would it take for me to do X, Y, and Z? How can I consistently create a stream of revenue that allows me to feel supported and grace-filled in this day, each and every day? What do I need to do in order to create? What is keeping me from? If you're looking for where you might be stuck or blocked, ask a question. And what needs to happen for me to become clear? Ask questions. If you want a new car, ask the universe, what would it take for me to create for myself a new car that is safe and allows me to get from point A to point B with joy and delight? That's a question. You don't have to answer it. You're, by virtue of asking, seeding the universe to find that possibility. The universe starts scrolling through its Rolodex of options, right? And then finds the right one that matches your vibrational frequency, your emotional state, and throws it down into manifested form. And then you go, wow, this is awesome. Or you go, oh, that was dumb. I don't want that. And then you don't do it. Take some time this week to ask questions about your abundance. What do you want? What would it take for? What needs to happen for? How can this sustain you? What needs to be moved out of the way for? What are the possibilities of? What else is possible? Ask good questions. Those questions are actually powerfully creative. The second part of the equation is you have to believe you can have it. Well, here comes the next adventure, right? It's very difficult for us when we have openness in the head center to not always be under pressure to try to figure out what we need and want. And that figuring out thing gets in the way of us allowing ourselves to believe in what is possible for us. We limit what we think is possible when we start to use our human mind to try to figure out the answer. Same thing for the ajna. When you have an open ajna, the tendency is for you to have a hard time believing because your beliefs are always changing, and that's the nature of the open ajna. When you have a defined ajna, if you've got stuck, thick ideas and beliefs up here that are not serving your abundance, and that's easy to do when you have a defined ajna, then you've got to clear out those belief systems. And I would recommend using any kind of energy psychology technique or the quantum alignment system in particular to get in there and start rooting around and eliminating some of those old beliefs that might be keeping you from allowing yourself to stay in a state of positive expectation. When you have an open G center, because you take in other people's identities, it's very easy for your own direction to get hijacked if you are forgetting that, hey, I experience other people's identities deeply. Just because I'm feeling them and sensing them doesn't mean I have to go do what they're doing. Okay, the G center, which is the center for identity, is also the center for direction. And if you mistakenly take on somebody else's identity and you forget, oh, I take other people's identities in, you can let somebody else's identity hijack your direction. So be mindful of, first of all, if you have an open G, making sure you're in the right place geographically, with the right people who inspire you and lift you up, whose direction you at least want to emulate, so that you stay in that state of creating from a place that is worthy of who you really are. Again, the will center. When you have a defined will center, that's 1/8 of you, you will have a tendency to be terrified of coming from your ego. Okay, and when we are terrified of coming from our ego, we don't allow our personal individuated self to serve at our highest level. When you have an open will center, the tendency is to question your value and to undervalue yourself. And so when we look at belief systems, there's a tendency here when this is open to undervalue what you're here to give to the world or undervalue yourself and create or have belief systems that don't support the full expression of the essence of who you truly are. The beliefs that you hold are both personal and collective. Pay attention to not only your own beliefs, but the collective beliefs you may have picked up from others, especially around money, because money is a big collective thought. It's not actually collective by design, but we make it collective in the way in which we try to manage it. You are only going to create to the degree to which you believe you can. Your inner conundrum, which I haven't talked about, that's a whole other class. Maybe that's what I'll talk about next week. Every chart has built into it a conundrum. There are places within your chart where you are designed to struggle with yourself. And in that struggling with yourself, that struggle becomes the catalyst for your growth and expansion, for your maturity, and for you to be the masterful expression of who you are. Your inner conundrum sometimes will influence what you believe. So it is important, if you want to rewrite your belief system, that you understand your human design chart and you know who you are. That's especially true in this Uranus and Taurus cycle, because with so much changeability and variability and so much potential for the foundation to kind of get rocked out from under us, the more you understand yourself and your connection to yourself, the more you have a touch point to sustain yourself during times of dramatic change. Also, your past experiences are going to influence your beliefs. So release your karma. Do whatever you need to do to release the past, to rewrite the story of who you believe yourself to be, and find the blessings in the pain of the past so that you can take the lessons and not the pain forward with you. And again, I encourage you to explore the following question. How much do you trust the universe? Because the more you have a belief around the universe is constantly conspiring on my behalf, the more you're going to create in alignment with that belief. And that's a really powerful, really important belief as we continue to move forward. Because if you see things or you have experiences that don't make sense to you, if things begin to get rocked in your world, as they might do, that happens. Unexpected things happen. So the question then becomes, in the face of the unexpected, do you trust the universe? Do you believe that even if you don't understand what's happening right now, that the universe is still conspiring on your behalf? You have that belief, the world will create with you. Do you trust the universe enough to allow everything, even the stuff you don't understand or feels painful? Because when you can really sit with it and be with it, you may find that if you get through to the other side of it, that it actually was one of the greatest catalytic experiences of your life, and it was there for a reason. What beliefs do you have that are keeping you from your true creative power? Again, an exploration for you to think about as you go through this next week. Guided action, last step here, is guided action, not brain power. That's not figuring it out. And sometimes if you don't know what to do, the guided action is having a daily and consistent practice of maintaining your vibrational frequency. So loving yourself, taking care of yourself, nurturing yourself. It feels like you're in a cosmic dead space. Don't freak out. Do daily and consistent vibrational maintenance. Your action and the actions that you take are going to be influenced by your type and your strategy and authority. And while you're waiting, for those of us who are waiting types, for something to show up, do the things that don't rely on others. Get them done while you're waiting. Set the stage, build the foundation so that when the opportunity, the invitation, the recognition, the something to respond to, when those things show up, you're ready. You're ready to pull the trigger, and you've been preparing all along the way. So your energy is aligned, your foundation is set, and you're good to go. The more in alignment you are with those two things, having your vibration aligned and your foundation set, the more you can influence the timing of what you want to create. And the more you can't always control the timing, but you certainly can influence the timing more in your favor if you set the foundation, take daily care and consistent care of your vibrational alignment, and then wait and live according to who you truly are, your type, and your strategy. We are moving from a place of knowing how to use our energy correctly. We are coming from a place of being reactive versus creating deliberately. We are moving out of an era that's rooted in fear to knowing how to use our vibrational energy, our vibrational creativity from the emotional solar plexus, giving us the capacity to be deliberate. We can consciously and deliberately hold a frequency of energy. Emotional energy, just like any kind of frequency of energy, travels in waves. Where we put our energy and attention is where we get growth and results. That influences the quality of the wave that you offer. If you think about this graph being an emotional wave, it's the baseline energy, not the day-to-day fluctuations that matter. Don't freak out if you have a bad day. That's the bottom line here. Just do whatever you need to do to bring yourself back up. Don't focus on what's wrong with me. What have I done wrong? Why do I feel this way? Don't focus on how crappy you feel, because where you put your focus is where you get growth. The top image in the top wave here is a low vibrational wave. It's called a low frequency wave because it doesn't move much over a period of time, which means you're going to be sitting a lot longer at the bottom end of that wave, feeling a lot crappier for a longer period of time, especially if you, while you're at the bottom of that wave, you're looking down. What's wrong with me? Why do I feel this way? Why do I feel so crappy? Why is my life suck? What have I done? And you're asking those kinds of creative questions, you're going to get some answers that are not going to be so fun to experience. The bottom diagram here is what's called a high frequency wave. It's called high frequency because it moves a lot over the same period of time compared to the low frequency above. When you have a high frequency wave, you don't spend so much time up or down, and so you don't perceive the depth of the undulations that you do in the upper wave. The reason you do the gift of being a high frequency energy, or the way in which you create and stabilize high frequency energy, is you keep pointing your attention up. When we talk about using your focus to grow, you got to keep thinking in such a way, keep consciously tailoring your environment in such a way that you are lifting your vibrational frequency higher and higher. You may never do away with your emotional wave if you're emotionally defined, but you can lift the baseline frequency, meaning you can take that median point higher and higher and higher, depending on where you focus your energy. So the last question that I want to leave you with is, what new habits are you going to create to maintain your vibrational frequency? So thank you all for joining us. It's a big topic. It's a very interesting point in our evolution. And I think it's, I think the conversations we are having about money and value and exchange of value and sustainability and creativity and community, these conversations are laying the energetic template and the foundation for changing the world in a very beautiful way. And I look forward to creating this world with all of you. So thank you all. Have a great weekend. Bye.